The complete works of Swami Vivekananda, Volume 2, Section 2, Jnana Yoga or Jnana Yoga, Chapter 3, Maya and Illusion, lecture delivered in London. Almost all of you have heard of word Maya. Generally, it is used, though incorrectly, to denote illusion or delusion or some such thing. But the theory of Maya forms one of the pillars upon which Vedanta philosophy rests. It is therefore necessary that it should be properly understood. I ask a little patience of you, for there is a great danger of its being misunderstood. The oldest idea of Maya that we find in the Vedic literature is the sense of delusion, but then the real theory had not been reached. We find such passages as Indra, through his Maya, assumed various forms. Here it is true, the word Maya means something like magic, and we find various other passages always taking the same meaning. The word Maya then dropped out of the sight altogether. But in the meantime, the idea was developing. Later, the question was raised, why can't we know this secret of the universe? And the answer given was very significant. Because we talk in vain, and because we are satisfied with the things of the senses, and because we are running after desires, therefore we, as it were, cover the reality with the mist. Here the word Maya is not used at all, but we get the idea that the cause of our ignorance is a kind of mist that has come between us and the truth. Much later on, in one of the latest Upanishad, we find the word Maya repairing, but this time a transformation has been taken place in it, and a mass of new meaning has attached itself to the word. Theories had been propounded and repeated, others had been taken up until at last the idea of Maya became fixed. We read in the Shweta Upanishad Shwetara Upanishad, known nature to be Maya, and the ruler of this Maya is the Lord Himself. Coming to our philosophers, we find that this word Maya has been manipulated in various fashions until we come to get the great Shankaracharya. The theory of Maya was manipulated a little by the Buddhists too, but in the hands of Buddhists, it became very much like what is called as idealism, and that is the meaning that is now generally given to the word Maya. When the Hindu says the world is Maya, at once people get idea that the world is an illusion. This interpretation has some basis as coming through the Buddhistic philosophers, because there was one section of philosophers who did not believe in the external world at all, but the Maya of the Vedanta in its last developed form is neither idealism nor realism, nor is it a theory. It is a simple statement of facts, what we are and what we see around us. As I have told you before, the minds of people from whom the Vedas came were intent upon following principles, discovering principles. They had no time they had no time to work upon details or to wait for them. They wanted to go deep into the heart of the things. Something beyond was calling them, as it were, and they could not wait. Scattered through the Upanishads, we find that the details of subject which we know now called modern sciences are often very erroneous, but at the same time, their principles are correct. For instance, the idea of ether, which is one of the latest theory of the modern science, is to be found in our ancient literature in forms much more developed than in the modern scientific theory of the ether today. But it was in principles. When they tried to demonstrate the working of that principle, they made many mistakes The theory of the all pervading life principles, of which all life is this universe is but a differing manifestation, was understood in the Vedanta time or in Vedic times. It is found in the Brahmanas. It is found in the Brahmanas. There is a long hymn in the Savita in praise of Pran, of which all life is but a manifestation. By the by, it may interest some of you to know that there are theories in the Vedanta philosophy about the origin of life on the earth very similar to those which have been advanced by some modern European scientists. You, of course, all know that there is a theory that life came from other planets, and it is settled doctrine with some Vedic philosophers that life comes in this way from the moon. Coming to the principles, we find these Vedic thinkers very courageous and wonderfully bold to propounding large and generalized theories. Their solution of the mystery of the universe from the external world was as satisfactory as it could be. The detailed working of modern science do not bring the question one step nearer to the solution because the principles have failed. If the theory of ether failed in ancient times to give a solution of the mystery of the universe, working out the details of that ether theory would not bring us much nearer to the truth. If the theory of all pervading life failed as a theory of this universe, it would not mean anything more if worked out in detail, for the details do not change the principle of the universe. What I mean is that in that query or in that inquiry into the principle, the Hindu thinkers were as bold and, in such cases, much bolder than the moderns. They made some of the grandest generalization that have yet been reached, and some think some still remain as theories, which modern science has yet to get even as theories. For instance, they not only arrive at the ether theory but went beyond and classified mind also has a still more rarefield ether. Beyond, beyond Beyond that, again, they found a still more rarefied ether. Yet, that was no solution. It did not solve the problem. No amount of knowledge of the external world could solve the problem. But, says the scientist, we are just beginning to know a little. Wait a few thousand years and we shall get the solution. No, says the Vedantist, for he has proved beyond all doubt that mind is limited and that it cannot go beyond certain limits, beyond time, space, and causation. As no man can jump out of his own seat own self, so no man can be go beyond the limits that have been put upon him by the law of time and space. Either attempt to solve the laws of causation, time and space would be futile because the very attempt would have to be made by taking for granted the existence of these three. What does the statement of the existence of the world mean then? This world has no existence. What is meant by that? It means that it has no absolute existence. It exists only in relation to the mind, to your mind, and to the mind of everyone. We see this world with the five senses, but if we had another sense, we would see in it something more. If we had at another sense, it would appear to has something still different. It has therefore no real existence. It has no unchangeable, immovable, infinite existence, nor can it be called non-existence, seeing that is exist. It exists. And when we have to work in and through it, it is a mixture of existence and non-existence. Coming from abstraction to the common, everyday details of our lives, we find that our own life is a contradiction, a mixture of existence and non existence. There is this contradiction in knowledge. It seems that man can know everything if he only wants to know, but Before he has gone a few steps, he finds an adamantine wall which cannot pass. All his work is in the cycle, like circle form, and he cannot go beyond that circle. The problem which are nearer and dearer to him are impelling him on and calling day and night for solution, but he cannot solve them because he cannot go beyond his intellect, and yet that desire is implanted strongly in him. Still we know that the only good to be obtained by controlling and checking it. With every breath, every impulse of our heart asks us to be selfish. At the same time, there is some power beyond us which says that it is unselfishness alone which is good. Every child is a born optimist. He dreams golden dreams. In youth, he becomes still more optimistic. It is hard for a young man to believe that there is such a thing as death, such a thing as defeat or degradation. Old age comes and life is a mass of dreams. Dreams have vanished into the air, and man becomes a pessimist. pessimist. Thus we go from one extreme to another, buffeted by nature without knowing where we are going. It reminds me of a celebrated song in the Lalita Vistara, the biography of Buddha. Buddha was born, says the book, as the savior of mankind, but he forget himself in the luxuries of his palace. Some angels came and sang a song to rouse him, and the burden of the whole song is that we are floating down the river of life, which is continuously changing with no stop and no rest. So are our lives, going on and on without knowing any rest. What are we to do? The man who has enough to eat and drink is an optimist, and he avoids all mention of misery, for it frightens him. Tell not to him of the sorrows and the sufferings of the world. Go to him and tell that it is all good. Yes, I am safe, say he. Look at me. I have a nice house to live in. I do not fear cold and hunger, and therefore do not bring this horrible picture before me. But on the other hand, there are other dying of cold and hunger. If you go and teach them that it is all good, they will not hear you. How can they wish others to be happy when they are miserable? Thus, we are oscillating between optimism and pessimism. Then there is a tremendous fact of death. The whole world is going towards death. Everything dies. All our progresses, our vanities, our reforms, our luxuries, our wealth, our knowledge have that one end, that is all that is certain. Cities come and go, and emperors rise and fall. Planets break into pieces and crumble into dust, to be blown about by the atmospheres of other planets. Thus, it has been going on from time without beginning. Death is the end of everything. Death is the end of life, of beauty, of wealth, of power, of virtues too. Saints die and sinners die. Kings die and beggars die. They are all going to die, and yet this tremendous clinging on to life exists. Somehow we do not know why we cling to life. We cannot give it up. And this is Maya. The mother is nursing a child with great care. All her soul, her life is in that child. The child grows, becomes a man, and perchance becomes a blackguard and a brute, kicks her and beats her every day, and yet the mother clings to the child. And when her reason awakens, she covers it up with the idea of love. She little thinks that it is not love, that it is something which has got hold of her nerves. which she cannot shake off. However, she may try, she cannot shake off the bondage she is in. And this is Maya. We are all after the golden fleece. Every one of us think that this will be this his. Every reasonable man sees that his chance is perhaps one in 20 million, yet everyone struggles for it, and this is Maya. Death is stalking day and night over this earth of ours, but at the same time we think we shall live eternally. A question was once asked of King Yudhishthir, what is the most wonderful thing on this earth? And the king replied, every day people are dying around us, and yet man thinks that they will never die. That this is Maya. This tremendous contradiction in our intellect, in our knowledge, in all the fact of our life face us on all sides. A reformer arises and wants to remedy the evil that are existing in the certain nation, and before they have been remedied, a thousand other evils arise in another plane or another place. It is it is like an old house that is falling up. Patch it up in one place and the ruins extend to another. In India, our reformers cry and preach against the evil of enforced widowhood. In the West, non marriage is the great evil. Help the non-married on one side, they are suffering. Help the widows on the other, they are suffering. It is like chronic rheumatism who drives it from the head and it goes to the body. You drive it from there and then it goes to the feet. Performers arise and preach that learning, wealth, and culture should not be in the hands of a select few, and they do their best to make them accessible at all. This may bring more happiness to some, but perhaps a culture comes, perhaps has culture comes physical happiness lessons. The knowledge of happiness brings the knowledge of unhappiness. Which way then shall we go? The least amount of material prosperity that we enjoy is causing the same amount of misery elsewhere. This is the law. This is the law. The young perhaps do not see it clearly, but those who have lived long enough and those who have struggled enough with understanding will understand it. And this is Maya. These things are going on day and night, and to find a solution of this problem is impossible. Why should it be so? It is impossible to answer this because the question cannot be logically formulated. There is neither how or nor why. In fact, we only know that we cannot help it. Even to grasp it, to draw an exact image of it in our own mind, is beyond our power. How can we solve it then? Maya is a statement of the fact of this universe, of how it is going on. People generally get frightened when these things are told to them, but bold we must be. Hiding fact is not the way to find a remedy. As you all know, or hare, hare hunted by dogs put its head down and thinks itself safe. So, when we run into optimism, we do just like the hare. But that is no remedy. There are objective against this. But you may remark that they are generally from people who possesses many of the good things in life. In this country, that is England, it is very difficult to become a Pessimist. Everyone tells me how wonderfully the world is going on, how progressive, but what he himself is his own world. Old questions arise. Christianity must be the only truth religion of the world because Christians nation are prosperous, but the assertion contradicts itself because the prosperity of the Christian nation depends on the misfortune of non-Christian nations. There must be some to prey on. Suppose the whole world were to become Christian, then the Christian nation would become poor because there would be no non-Christian nations for them to prey upon. Thus the argument kills itself. Animals are living upon plants, men upon the animals, and worst of all, upon the one another, the strong upon the weak. This is the going on everywhere. And this is Maya. What solution do you find for it? We find here every day many explanations and are told that in a long run all will be good. Taking it for granted that this is possible, why should there be this diabolical way of doing good? Why cannot good be done through good instead of through this diabolical method? The descendant of the human being of today will be happy, but why must there be all the suffering now? There is no pollution, no Maya. There is no solution. There is no solution. This is Maya. Again, we often hear that it is one of the features of evolution that it eliminates evil, and this evil being continuously eliminated from the world. At last, only good will remain. That is very nice to hear, and it panders to the vanity of those who have enough of the world's good. You have not a hard struggle to face every day and are not being crushed under the wheels of so-called evolution. It is very good and comforting instead of such fortunate ones. The common herd may suffer, but they do not care. Let them die. There are no consequences. Very good at this argument is fallacious from beginning to end. It takes evil in the world and it takes for granted in the first place that manifested goods and evils in this world are two absolute realities. In the second place, it makes a still worse assumption that the amount of good is an increasing quantity and the amount of evil is decreasing quantity. So, if evil is been eliminated in this way by what is called as evolution, there will come a time when all the is evil will be eliminated and what remains will be all good. Very easy to say, but very easy to say, but can it be proved that evil is the lessening quality? Take, for instance, the man who live and cannot read a book, has not heard of such a thing as writing. If he is severely wounded, he is soon all right again. While he die, if we get the scratch. Machines are making things cheap, making for progress and evolution, but millions are crushed. That one may become rich, while one becomes rich, thousands or at the same time becomes poorer and poorer, and while masses of human beings are made slaves. That way it is going on. The animal man lives in the senses. If he does not get enough of meat, he is miserable, or if something happens to his body, he is miserable. In the senses, both this misery and his happiness begin and end. As soon as this man progresses, as soon as his horizon of happiness increases, his horizon of unhappiness decreases. The horizon of unhappiness increases proportionately. The man in the forest does not know what it is to be jealous, to be in the law court, to pay taxes, and to blame by society, to be ruled over day and night by the most tremendous tyranny, and that human diabolism ever invented, which pries into the secret of every human heart. He does not know how man becomes 1,000 times more diabolical than any other animal, with all his vain knowledge and with all his pride. Thus it is that as we we emerge out of the senses, we develop higher powers of enjoyment, and at the same time we have to develop higher powers of suffering too. The nerves becomes finer and capable of more suffering. In every society we often find that the ignorant common man, when abused, does not feel much, but he feels a good thrashing. But the gentleman cannot bear a single word of abuse. He has become so finely nerved. Misery has increased with his susceptibility susceptibility to happiness. This does not go much to prove the evolutionist case. As we increase our power we to be happy, as we increase our power to be happy, we also increase our power to suffer. And sometimes I am inclined to think that if we increase our power to become happy in the arithmetical progress, we shall increase on the other hand, our power to become miserable in geometrical progression. We who are progressing know that the more we progress, the more avenue are open to pain as well as pleasure, and this is Maya. Thus, we find that Maya is not a theory for the explanation of the world. It is simply a statement of facts as they exist. That the very basis of our being is contradicted, that everywhere we have to move through this tremendous contradiction. That wherever there is good, there must also be evil, and wherever there is evil, there must be some good. Wherever there is life, death must follow it in its shadow, and wherever you smile, will have to weep, and vice versa. Nor can this state of things be remedied. We may verily imagine that there will be a place where there will be only good and no evil, where we shall only smile and never weep. This is impossible in the very nature of things, for the conditions will remain the same. Wherever there is a power of production or smile is is in us, there looks the power of production tears. Wherever there is a power of production, there lures somewhere the power of making us miserable. Thus, the Vedant philosophy is neither optimistic nor pessimistic. It voices both these views and takes little of as they are. It admits that this world is a mixture of good and evil, happiness and misery, and that to increase the one must be necessarily decrease the other. There will never be a perfect God or bad world or good world, because the very idea is a contradiction in term. The great secret revealed by this analysis is that good and bad are not two cuts and dried separately exist. There is not one thing in this world of ours which you can label as good and good alone, and there is no one in the universe which you can label as bad and bad alone. The very same phenomena which is appearing to be good now is may appear to be bad tomorrow. The same thing which is producing misery in one may produce happiness in other. The fire that burns the child may cook a good meal for a starving man. The same nerve that carries the sensation of misery carries also the sensation of happiness. The only way to stop evil, the only way to stop evil, therefore, is to stop good also. There is no other way. To stop death, we shall have to stop life also. Life can without death and happiness, without misery and contradictions, and neither can be found alone. Before each of them is but a different manifestations of the same thing. What I thought to be good yesterday, I do not think it to be good now. When I look back upon my life and see what were my ideas at different times, I find this is to be so. And one time, my idea was to drive a strong pair of horses. And another time, I thought if I could make a certain kind of sweet mate, I should be perfectly happy. Later, I imagined that I should be entirely satisfied if I had a wife and children and plenty of money together. Today, I laugh at all these ideas as mere childish nonsense. The Vedanta says there must come a time when we shall look back and laugh at the ideas which make us afraid of giving up our individuality. But each one of us shall be very happy. Each one of us want to keep this body for the infinite time, thinking we shall be very happy. But there will come a time when we shall laugh at this idea. Now, if such be the truth, we are in the state of hopeless condition contradictions. Neither existence nor non-existence, neither misery nor happiness, but a mixture of them. What then is the use of the Vedanta and all other philosophies and religion? And above all, what is the use of doing good work? This is a question that comes to the mind. If it is true that you cannot do good without doing evil, and whenever you try to create happiness, there will be always a misery. People like you, which I- we, what people like you, what is the use of doing good? The answer is in the first place that we must work for lessening misery, for that is the only way to make ourselves happy. Every one of us finds it out sooner or later in our lives. The bright ones find it out a little earlier, and the dull ones little later. The dull ones may pay very dearly for the discovery, and the bright ones less dearly. In the second place, we must do our part, because that is the only way of getting out of the life of contradictions. Both the forces of good and evil will keep this universe alive for us until we awake from our dreams and give up this building of mud piles. That lesson we shall have to learn, and it will take one long time. It will take a long time to learn it. Attempts have been made in Germany to build a system of philosophy on the basis that the infinite has become the finite. Such attempts are also made in England, and the analysis of the position of this philosopher is that the infinite is trying to express itself in this university, and that there will come a time when the infinite will succeed in doing so. It is all very well, and we have used the words infinite and manifestation and expression and so on. But philosophers naturally ask for the logical fundamental basis for the statement that the finite can fully express the infinite, the absolute and the absolute and the infinite can become this universe only by limitations. Every time or everything must be limited at some time. The absolute and the infinite can become this universal only by limitation. Every time must be limited that comes through the senses or through the mind or through the intellect. For the limited to be and for the limited that comes through the senses or through the mind or through the intellect or through the limited to the unlimited to be simply absurd and can never be. The Vedant, on the other hand, says that it is true that the absolute or the infinite is trying to express itself in the infinite, but there will come a time when it will find that it is impossible, and it will remain it will then have a bit of retreat and impossible beating. A retreat means renunciation, which is the talk real talk of renunciation. It was said of me in America that I was a man who came out of a land that had been deaf, that had been dead and buried for 5,000 years, and talked of renunciation. So, say perhaps the English philosopher had to Yet it is true that in the only path of religion, renounce and give up what we Christ say. He that loosens his life for my sake shall find it. Again and again did he preach renunciation as the only way to perfection. There comes a time when the mind awakens from the long and deep dreams, the child's give up its play and want to go back to its mother. It finds the truth of the statement. Desire is never satisfied by the enjoyment of desire. It only increases the more a fire when the butter is poured upon it. This is true of all sense enjoyment, of all intellectual enjoyment, and of all enjoyments of which the human mind is capable of. They are nothing. They are within Maya, within capacity by its belt. They are nothing. They are within Maya, within this network, beyond which we cannot go. May run therein through infinite number and find no end. And whenever we struggle to get a little joy, a mass of misery falls upon us. How awful is this? And when I think of it, I cannot but consider that this theory of Maya, this statement that it all Maya is the best and only explanation. What an amount of misery there is in this world, and if you travel among various nations, you will find that one nation attempts to cure its evils has been taken by various races and attempts have been made in various ways to check it, yet no nation has succeeded. If it has been minimized at one point, a mass of evil has been crowded at another point. Thus it goes. The Hindus, to keep up a high standard of chastity in the race, have sanctioned child marriage, which in a long run has degraded the races. At the same time, I cannot deny that this child marriage makes the race more costly. What would you do, or what would you have if you want the nation to be more chaste? You weaken men and women physically by child marriage. On the other hand, are you in England then any better off? No, because chastity is the one of the nature. Do you not find in history that the first death sign of the nation has been unchastity? When that has entered, the end of the race is in sight. Where shall we get a solution of this miseries then? Miseries then, if parents select husbands and of India, daughters of India are more practically than sentimental. But very little of poetry remain in their lives. Again, if people select their own husbands and wives, that does not seem to be better than happiness. The animal and the Indian woman is generally very happy. There is not many cases of quarreling between husband and wife. On the other hand, is on the other hand, in the United States, where the greatest library obtained the number of unhappy homes and marriages is large. Unhappiness is here, there, and everywhere. What does it show? That after all, not much happiness has been gained by all these ideas. We all struggle for happiness, and as soon as we get a little happiness on one side, on the other side there comes unhappiness. Shall we not work to do good then? We yes, with more zest than ever. But what this knowledge will do for us is to break down our fantasism. The Englishman will no more be the fantasic and curse the Hindus. He will learn to respect the custom of different nations. There will be less fantasism and more of real work. Fanatic Fanatics cannot work. They waste three-fourth of their energy. It is the level-headed, calm, practical man who works. So the power of work will increase from his idea. Knowing that this is the idea of things, there will be more patience. The sight of misery or of the evil will not be able to throw us off our balance and make us run away after the shadows. Therefore, patience will come to us, knowing that the world will have to go on its own. If, for instance, all men have become good, the animal will have in the meantime evolved into men and will have to pass through the same state, and so with the plants. But only one thing is certain: the mighty river is rushing towards the ocean, and all the drops that constitute the stream will in time be drawn into that boundless ocean. So, in this life, with all its miseries and sorrows, its joys and smiles and tears, one thing is certain, that all things are rushing towards their goal, and it is only a question of time when you and I, plants and animals, and every particle of life that exists must reach the infinite ocean of perfection, must attain a freedom of God or to God. Let us repeat once more that the Vedant position is neither pessimism nor optimism. It does not say that this world is all evil or all good. It says that our evil is of no value or less value than our good, and our good is of more value than our evil. They are bound together. This is the world, and knowing this, you work with the patience. What for? Why should we work? If this is the state of thing, what shall we do? Why not become agnostic? The modern agnostic also knows there is no solution of this problem, no getting out of this evil of Maya. As we say in our language, therefore they tell us to be satisfied and enjoy life. Here again is a mistake, tremendous mistake, a most illogical mistake that and it is this. What do you mean by life? Do you mean only the life of the senses? In this, every one of us differ only slightly from the brutes. I am sure that no one is present here whose life is only in the senses. Then this presence will means something more than that. Our feelings, thoughts, and aspiration are all part and parcels of our life. And it's not the struggle towards the great idea, towards the perception, one of the most important components of what we call life. According to the agnostic, we must enjoy life as it is. But this life means, above all, this search after the idea, the essence of life is going towards perfection. We must have that, and therefore, we cannot be agnostic or take the world as it appears. The agnostic position takes this life minus the idea component to be all that exists, and this the agnostic claims cannot be reached. Therefore, he must give up the search. This is what called Maya, this nature, this universe. All religions are more or less attempts to get beyond nature, the crudest or the most developed, expressed through mythology or symbology, stories of gods, angels, or demons, or through stories of saints and seers, great men and or prophets, or through the abstraction of the philosophy. All have that one object. All are trying to get beyond this limitation. In one word, these are all struggling towards freedom. Man feels consciously or unconsciously that he is bound, he is not what he wants to be. It was taught to him at the very moment he began to look around. That very instant he learnt that he was bound, and he also found that there was something in him which wanted to fly beyond, where the body could not follow, but which was as yet chained down by this limitation. Even in the lowest of religious idea, very departed ancestors and the other spirit, mostly violent and cruel, lurking about the houses of their friends, fond of bloodsheds and strong drinks, are worshipped. Even there we find that one common factor, that of freedom. The man who wants to worship the God sees in them, all above all things, greater freedom than in himself. If the door is closed, he thinks the God who can get through it, and that walls have no limitations for him. This idea of freedom increases until it comes to the idea of personal God, of which the central concept of is that he is the being beyond the limitations of nature, of Maya. I see before me, as it were, that in some of those forest retreats this question is being discussed by those ancient sages of India, and in one of them, where one, the oldest and the holiest, fail to reach the solution, a young man stands up in the midst of them and declares, "Here, you children of immortality, here, you who live in the highest places, I have found a way. By knowing Him who is beyond darkness, we can go beyond that. This Maya is everywhere. It is terrible, yet we have to work through it. The man who says that he will work when the world has become all good, and then he will enjoy bliss. Is as likely to succeed as a man who sits beside the Ganga and say, I will ford the river when all the water has run into the ocean. The way is not the way is not with Maya but against it. This is another fact to learn. We are not born as helpers. We are not born as helpers of nature, but competitors with nature. We are its bondages, or we are its bond masters, but we bind ourselves down. Why is this house here? Nature did not build it. Nature says go and live in the nature, and he does so. Man says, I will build a house and fight with nature, and he does so. The whole history of humanity is continuous fight against the so-called law of nature, and the man gains in the end. Coming to the internal world, there too the same fight is going on. This fight between the animal man and spiritual man, between light and darkness, and here too man becomes victorious. He has it where cuts his way out of the nature to freedom. We see then that beyond this Maya, the Vedantic philosophers find something such which is not bound by Maya. And if we can get there, we shall not be bound by Maya. This idea is in some form or other the common property of all religions. But with the Vedant, it is only the beginning of the religion and not the end. The idea of the personal God, ruler, and creator of this universe has he who has been styled the ruler of Maya or nature is not the end of this Vedantic idea, it is only the beginning. The idea grows and grows until the Vedantist finds that he thought was standing outside is he himself and is in reality within. He is the one who is free, but who through limitations thought he was bound. He is the one who is free, but who through limitations thought he was bound.